Well, Dave, we're here at the workbench. Time to talk a little bit about rigs and techniques. You kind of let the cat out of the bag about interviewing a guide and what we got to bring.
Yeah. You when you're choosing the right guide, you want to try to pick somebody who you're going to get along with to make it the most out of your trip. It's kind of like an interview process. Anytime you pick somebody that you haven't fished with before, you run the risk of not getting along or personalities, clash. But if you call the guy and talk to him on the phone for a little while, maybe look at some reviews and figure out how he's been doing, you can really weed through a bunch of fellas and get down to 2 or 3 and make your pick. A lot of guys worry, if they're a novice guy, never went fishing before, they're worried about their experience and whatnot. Explain that all to your guide when you call them. Say, look, I'm not that great at casting, or I can't use a bait caster. Just be real honest, because the more honest you are, the more fun you're going to have during the trip. He can set up all the gear to make it as easy for you as possible. Same goes if you're an experienced guy and you're getting on the boat, and you're maybe you've moved to a new area and you want to learn a lake. There's nothing better than to get a guide for at least one day. 8 hours with a guide, a good guide, a guy that, like Matt says, who's more of a teacher than just a guide. You can shave weeks off your learning curve for a piece of water, a lake or a bay or any region, let's say.
Like I learned this week with fishing with Chad this past weekend, I learned about how they bump a croaker. They throw a croaker in the hole and they bump it. Well, why do you do that, Chad? Well, every time you pull him up like that, it makes him croak. It
makes him move and croak.
Makes him make a noise, and those trout would find him.
Right. So, that's another thing. Chad, he says that you also want to try to get the local knowledge, maybe. Call a bunch of hotels in the area. Find out who the people are fishing with that stay in the hotels or the marinas. Who do they recommend? Because a lot of those guys, they're fishing every day. And when you're talking to a fellow who's fishing every day out on the water, you're going to learn a lot from that guy. Yeah. And when you call them,
word of mouth, 100%.
Yeah, exactly. You can go online and look some of the reviews and stuff, but you got to take some of those with a grain of salt, because he could have a bunch of his friends putting a bunch of stuff up there. Yeah. And you might want to just, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. Yeah. Don't always try to go for the cheapest guy you can find. Right. Find a guy that's got some good people talking about him. If he's a tournament fisherman, he's done well in the tournaments. Those guys are always going to be pretty good. Sometimes they can be a little competitive. So make sure, when you talk to him, that you say, hey, I'm just out here to have fun or whatever.
Ask him what you should bring: polarized sunglasses, rods, reels, lunch. Right. All that's really important.
Yeah, make sure you get all that stuff, what you're going to be doing. Call him the day before and say, hey, what's the weather going to be like? Should I dress, should I bring some rain gear? Do you have that?
Sunscreen, does he provide that?
Correct. And usually they don't like you to bring the spray sunscreen. Correct. Use the wipe on stuff.
The lotion.
You can spray it on before you get on the boat, but once you get on the boat, that stuff goes everywhere, and it can make non-skid into skid, and it can stain stuff.
And if you're fishing offshore, it'll actually stain and burn little tiny holes.
Now, if you're going to go on
your isinglass.
Right. If you're going on an offshore trip, if you're wanting to pick an offshore guide, go into the head. If the head ain't fresh as clean as a daisy and smelling good, then don't go fishing with those guys. Because if they can't take care of the head, they can't take nothing in the cockpit.
That's some good advice, man. If it's a stinky downstairs, you need to get out of there.
That's right. It's not going to get any better during the day.
It's always nice to ask what they would like you to bring for them. Maybe like a special snack or a special drink, and you make your captain happy, and there's nothing better than that.